Hey, my lovely audience, I'm Jasmine Sidhu and I welcome you all to my English channel. In my today's video, I have taken up the explanation of chapter 6 from Moments book, which has been prescribed by CBSE for 9th class students. The name of the chapter is Weathering the Storm in Ersama. This account has been penned down by Mander, and if I talk about this eminent personality, he was born on 17th April 1955 at Shillong, and he is one of the renowned Indian author, columnist, researcher, teacher, and social activist who works with survivors of mass violence and hunger, as well as homeless persons and street children. He is the director of the Center for Equity Studies, a research organization based in New Delhi. He has written and co authored several books, and regularly he writes columns for newspapers like The Hindu, The Hindustan Times, and Dainik Bhaskar. Now, let me introduce this story to you all. This story gives us an account of the storm that hit the coastal town of Ersama in Orissa state in the year 1999, and actually how people endured it and how they survived it. It is about the courage of a teenage boy who made consistent efforts to rehabilitate his villagers, and in this story, we'll see this is basically one such account that celebrates a brave tale of survival that came to light during the cyclone that hit Orissa on 27th October 1999. This story is based on the theme that if one wishes to get over one's own sorrow, then one should help others. Why? Because service to mankind is the biggest healer. When you help others, you forget your own sorrows. Another theme which is highlighted here is that courage helps people to get over hard times. So we should have faith in our own existence. We should have faith in our own capabilities. We should have faith in God, which will actually help us to sail smoothly during the tough times. The story gives the message of brotherhood and compassion. Now, if we talk about this teenage boy, Prashanth, he is the protagonist of the story, and he is a young boy of 19 who lived in the village Kaligutta in Orissa. At the age of 12, he suffered a personal tragedy and lost his mother. And 7 years back, that wasn't the end of his suffering. After 7 years, he again encountered another tragedy when he got trapped by the cyclonic devastation that hit the state. But Prashanth's strong and courageous character during this testing times came to fore, and he proved himself to be the best leader. He showed his leadership qualities and was able to organize people who survived the catastrophe. He healed the wounded souls of elderly, children, and youth and became a role model for everyone to emulate. Now, how this incident happened and how it affected Prashanth. It was actually 27th October 1999, 7 years after his mother's death, that Prashanth he had gone to the block headquarters of Ersama, a small town in coastal Orissa, which was somewhat 18 kilometers away from his own village Kalikutta, and the motive was that he wanted to spend a day with his friend at Ersama. Now he reached that place, right? In the evening time, a super cyclone came. Winds beat against the houses with a speed of 350 kilometers per hour. There was heavy, incessant rain which filled the darkness in the sky. Ancient trees were uprooted and they were crashed down to the earth. Screams rent the air as people and houses were swiftly washed away. People were screaming, shouting, and you know, wanting a ray of hope so that they could survive this cyclone. The angry waters They swirled into his friend's house neck deep. The building, because it was made of brick and mortar, it was a cemented house, so it was strong enough to survive the devastation. But the water in the house and the surrounding area, it was neck deep. So, to save their lives, Prashant and his family, they moved to the rooftop so that they could at least survive. They should not die in the flood waters. So they came on the roof, and next 36 hours they were on the roof and looking at the devastation caused due to the cyclone. Though the next morning the speed of the wind it was reduced, but still it was a panicky situation all around. A raging, deadly brown sheet of water covered everything as far as the eye could see. Only fractured cement houses still stood in a few places. Bloated animal carcasses and human corpses, they floated in every direction. All round, even huge old trees had fallen down. Now, amidst all this chaos, they were lucky enough that two coconut trees actually fell on the roof of their house, right? That was actually a blessing in disguise because they could eat at least the tender coconuts from the trees, and they were able to survive in this testing times. They were trapped on the roof, but at least they were having tender coconuts to eat and survive. So, the rain, after 2 days, it stopped, and it seemed to Prashanth that those 2 days' time was actually a long duration as of 2 years. The rain waters slowly began to recede, and at that time, Prashanth he was determined to seek out his family without further delay. He was worried about his family, whether they have survived the cyclone or the flood waters have washed away everything and all the people in his house. So he was worried, he was fearing that maybe he might not see his family members. So he decided that since the rain has stopped, water was receding, though still it was waist deep water all around. But he took the master decision, and with the help of a long stick, Prashant started to cover 18-kilometer distance towards his house. And throughout, when he was covering the distance, somewhere he was, you know, feeling so bad, and he was scared because all around wherever his eye could see, he could find the dead bodies of human beings, the carcasses of animals everywhere. That was only the thing which he could see. But after some time he was relieved as he got the company of two friends who, along with their uncle, they were also returning to their village Kalikutta, and then all of them together they proceeded towards the village. Now, when Prashant reached his village, he became numb on seeing the remains of his house. The belongings were scattered in the water. He couldn't see any of his family members over there. So he was panicked. But then suddenly he decided to look for his family. He mustered his courage and he decided that I should look for my family. And at a shelter house, which was set up by the Red Cross Society, he planned to go there and look for his family members. Now, when he reached there, among the first people he saw in the crowd was his maternal grandmother, weak with hunger, but was glad to see that Prashant was alive. You know, the feelings were mutual. Even the family members, they were fearing that whether Prashant would be alive or he would be dead, and vice versa. Prashant was thinking from his angle that whether his family members will be safe and sound or they would have been washed away with the flood waters. So when the grandmother saw Prashant and Prashant saw the grandmother, both of them they were relieved and happy, right? And she rushed towards Prashant with her open arms and her eyes full of tears. It was a miracle for her, as the family had thought that Prashant would not have survived the storm because he was a young boy. Quickly, word spread, and his extended family gathered around him and hugged him tightly in relief. By next morning, he sensed a deathly grief settling upon the 2,500 strong crowd in the shelter. There were 2,500 people in the shelter. Almost 86 lives were lost in the village, and 96 houses had been washed away in the cyclone. And this was the fourth day at the shelter. Then came his leadership qualities. He just looked around in the shelter, and at the age of 19, he decided to step in as the leader of his village. He formed a group of villagers, including the elders and the youth. They planned to force the local merchant to give them the stock of grains and rice to feed the people, right? And the second task of the group was to clean the shelter. He could see that there was a lot of garbage, there were excretory waste, dead bodies, right, all around the shelter. And he sensed one thing, that if hygiene is not maintained, maybe some other epidemic may happen in the village. So he worked upon cleaning the shelter as well. And on the fifth day, he witnessed a military helicopter, right? It flew over the shelter and dropped some food parcels. So an idea came to him, that if I make the children lie down in the sand with the utensils on their stomach to indicate to the passing helicopters that they need food, right? The people will come for a sortie on regular basis, and the food will be provided to them in the shelter. This idea worked. The signal was communicated to the helicopter people, and they started making regular rounds to that place to airdrop food and other basic needs. So that is how he worked for the welfare of his villagers. Then he thought about the rehabilitation work. He sensed that the children, those who have been orphaned, and the families where the husband has died, and where the mother has died in the family, all these people, they are actually getting depressed. So what he did, he put them all together under a polythene sheet, and he came up with a plan that the women in the shelter, they should look after the children, the orphan children, and the men, they would arrange food for everyone. And as the weeks passed, Prashant was quick to recognize that the women and children were sinking deeper and deeper into their grief. So he persuaded the women to start working for an NGO called Food for Work, right? And in the meantime, there were suggestions by the government authorities also to open, some separate institution for widows, orphans. But then this proposal was, successfully rejected by Prashant, because he felt that if we're going to segregate them in the, different apartments, it will bring more depression into them. Rather, he came up with a plan that the orphan children should be adopted by the women and men which were survived in the cyclone, and they will all live like a family, and they should all be together. And for children, he came up with sports events. Though he was a cricket player, he loved to play cricket, so he organized cricket matches for children as well. He felt that these separate, institutions will not help neither the orphan children, nor it will be beneficial for the widows. So he tried to settle down these orphan children and widows in foster families. Why? Because over there they could get love and security. And after 6 months of the disaster, it was only Prashant's handsome, youthful face what the widows and the orphan children of his village seek out most in their darkest hour of grief. His handsome face actually was a source of light for these orphan and widows in their village. But all in all, he was successful to showcase his leadership qualities. to instill life into these wounded souls of elderly or children, even the youth of his village, and he was able to bounce back to life. And amidst all this, he forgot his own sorrow also, that he lost his mother 7 years back, because he was so busy helping others that he felt his grief so small, and he was out of his own grief as well. So that's all in this chapter. I hope you might have liked my video. So please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much.